again. I know. Aren't we so proud? This is the second week. I know it's already the second week. I can't claim consistency yet, but come on. Second week. It's already hard enough. It's already hard enough to do the first one. So the fact that we're here again, yes, it is an absolute victory. So hello, I'm here, and I'm so happy to be recording again. It's been a busy week since I last recorded, and to just see the amount of support that has come from the people that are in my life and just those that are new to the channel, I'm so grateful. So thank you. Thank you for listening to our last podcast about me running away. Not running away from home or anything. Like running from the Lord and his call to obedience. But today, I'm actually talking to you about a different issue I had. Because again, this whole journey with me and us together is to utilize what I'm experiencing in my life with Christ to bring to you the life lessons that the Holy Spirit is allowing in me. Now, before we get started, and before I cue my pianist, we have Jesus up in the room. Firstly, I know, change of location. We are in my room, my secret place, my bedroom. I have my own little space that is a little under construction right now, praying that that can become the podcasting space, but help me pray, guys. For now, we're in my room, and I know you're in like where I knock out, but you're also where Jesus is. So, letting you guys know right now, you're leaning on the OG Jesus. He's about this big. He's lovely. We do love him. But my best friend, one of my best friends, which they're sisters, by the way, so iconic, but she got me this lovely 7-foot Jesus. It was a joke at first. Like, it was like a, hey, I found this 7-foot Jesus and I love him so much. I want him. Actually got me him for Christmas. Best thing ever. Literally, I sleep beside him day and night, and he has every tear, every bit of snot, so if you come over, don't hug him, but wave, acknowledge, because I love him. And then he's leaning on Mocha, which one of my other best friends got me Mocha, but Mocha is stiff, and yeah, Jesus is floppy. Like, his neck is yay big, so he's always, anyways, I gave you a little tour, but that is where we are today. And I love being able to show you guys those significant things to me, because I really do. Although it may seem to others like, really, you got a Jesus in your room? Yes, I have a Jesus in my room, and what is the problem? Because he's lovely. And I hope everyone can get him. Amazon, I think like $38. Someone let me know if I was right about that. Anyways, so before we get into today's topic and everything that we're talking about, I want to invite the Holy Spirit here because we need him. We always need him. So please join me in prayer. Bow your head and close your eyes. Holy Spirit of God, Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord. Thank you for being the God that you are. Thank you for sustaining us. Thank you for allowing us to remain with you. I am believing that since this last video that you have just been working, even though I have maybe been doing other things, Lord. You are the one that is constantly in everything all at once. I love that you are omnipresent, God. Thank you that you are working in this person's life, the one that's listening. Thank you that you've been working in mine. And thank you that you are always just doing work. You are always working and resting and being the most wonderful God. So we love you, Father. And in this moment, we just want to ask that you open our eyes, you open our minds, you open our hearts. Allow us to hear everything that you are trying to say to us in this moment. And let us just rest in you. We love you, we honor you, and in your holy, beautiful, matchless name we pray. Amen. All right, guys, so today we are talking about, at first, I named the title, A Good Worker, Bad Believer, hilarious to me because that's exactly how I feel. That's at least the battle of extremes that I have always kind of been at war with. But God was very quick to say, okay, you battled with being a good worker but not really believing and all of that. But there are people out there that are being stagnant believers, as in they are not moving at all and they are saying that they believe. So I need you to talk about two. And the more I really meditated on what a stagnant believer was, I was like, wow, I did and have absolutely bounced in between these two extremes where I am stagnantly believing, like I'm telling God, I have faith in you. I'm going to do all this work for you. I'm making all of these hasty promises to him, but then I'm not moving. And then I don't seem to have faith because nothing in me is acting out what I'm saying I believe in. And then on the other extreme, in the moments where I was working, I was doing things for the kingdom, I was moving in the ministry and in just the works and the purpose that God had for me, I'm being faithless. As in, I'm working for him, but then I'm not speaking to him. And I find myself, and I think many of us have found ourselves in this extreme where we are either faithlessly working. We're kind of like a spouse that has worked all day, comes home, gives a gift to our spouse, and then just goes to sleep and then goes back to work. And we're like, but we're doing this for our spouse. We're working for our spouse. And in this kingdom, the fact that we are the bride, I love that example, because our Father in heaven, whom we have this covenant with, we're working for him and we're doing these beautiful, honorable things for him, but we're not talking to him. We're not conversating with him. So our work is not being paired with intimacy. We're just working, and then on top of that, we're overworking ourselves to where we no longer long to be in his presence. We no longer long to have conversations with him because we're just overworking our bodies. And then we utilize the excuse of that overworking, being like, well, I now just need rest. And the rest that I need needs to be away from your presence because I've given you enough. And that is the cycle that we land in when we become faithless workers. And then from there we bounce to having faith, but then not moving. So I want to talk to you about those two extremes today, and how do we allow ourselves to find the perfect balance of working and believing, working and resting, and being able to truly give life to our work and not kill ourselves in this faith, not kill our faith by our works. So I notice within these two traps, there seems to be something that is trying to satisfy us. When we are looking at being a faithless worker, we find satisfaction in the fact that we're working. We feel productive. We feel like fulfilled in our own doing, in our own works. And then you look at the other extreme, when you're a stagnant believer, you feel satisfied just in believing. You feel satisfied in your speaking. Because can I say, stagnant believers tend to speak a lot more than they listen because they are not still sitting in God. They're not resting in God. They're not taking on his instruction. Kind of like me, I was a stagnant believer the past several months when I wasn't being obedient to his command. And I was saying, oh, I love him, I'm doing all these good things for him, but I'm not obeying him. That is stagnantly believing, because you're only partially believing. You're giving him half of your heart, because you know that if you were to really communicate with him, what he's going to ask of you. So it tends to be that faith lives in the mouth of the stagnant believer. They speak a lot. They speak a lot of what they are going to do, of what God is going to do in them, of just who they are in the faith, but they don't show the actions. So I want to start there. What it is to have a faith that only really lives in your mouth. And when I was thinking about this, of course, I was brought to James chapter 2, verses 14 through 24. Now, I do kind of want to read all these verses with you. It's only 10, and it really gives you such a good idea of the title is Faith Without Good Deeds is Dead, and that is exactly what the stagnant believer suffers with, is having faith without good deed. And if you're following me, I'm reading NLT, but you know what? Just listen in if you don't have the word right in front of you. And it says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone?" What a punch in the face, by the way. "Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, 'Goodbye, have a good day. Stay warm and eat well.'" Such a parenthesis to that. I was so convicted when I had first read this text, like years ago in like my early stages of faith, because I was the type of person that would look at a homeless person and say, "Oh my goodness, I feel so bad," but then I did nothing. And God is saying here, that is what it is to be a stagnant believer, is that you're seeing the need of something, but then you have no initiative in what you're saying should be different. Keep reading. "But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do?" So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds. It is dead and useless. Now, someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. You say you have faith, for you believe that there is only one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? Don't you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see, his faith and actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete. And so it happened, just as the scriptures say. Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called the friend of God. So you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone. So the stagnant believer is one that is dull and sluggish. Now that sounds like a little intense, but the word stagnant, and that's why I use that word, because of that meaning. It has the meaning dull and sluggish. It quite literally is that you believe, but you're believing in a way that is inactive. You're believing, which again, in here, the good intentions of the fact that even demons are able to believe. So you're no different by having faith. You're no different by saying, "I know that there's a God." Everyone knows that there's a God. Maybe not everyone admits to knowing, but just by, and as the word says, creation itself has his existence literally dwelling within it. So whether people agree with the fact or not, we are all very aware there is a God. There is a God that created all. There's a God that is walking in the midst of everything, and even the demons are aware of it. So if even the demons are aware, and even they believe, then a faith that is inactive is not really a faith that is pleasing to God. It's not one that is rare. It is one that is stuck, dull, and sluggish. When we are stagnant believers, we plant promises, but then we wait. We plant faith, but then we don't move. And what I find so interesting about stagnant believers, and stagnantly believing in general, because I can't name it as a label, I myself have gone through this, is that when you're not moving in faith, there's so much expectation for what God is going to do, because in his word it says all this abundance is going to be gifted to us when we have faith in him. So it feels like, okay, I'm believing in you, God. I'm not seeing your movement, but I'm just gonna believe that you're working. But then God is like, I did my portion. I'm now waiting for you to add on to what I've given you. And then when you add on, yes, you're gonna see the abundance of me multiplying your one single work, but you gotta work somehow. You can't just say, oh, I believe, and then you have all these expectations of God's promises over your life. You have all these moments of wanting his promises so badly, or just wanting the best for yourself. And then you're not seeing it because you're not moving. So when we are stagnantly believing, it is exactly that we are absolutely having a faith that is not rare, because even like we said, the non-believer can have a faith that God exists. But it is quite literally the movement within our faith that makes faith purposeful, and it makes it meaningful. So we have to start as stagnant believers when we feel that we are not moving in the midst of our faith, that we are speaking ahead of ourselves, that we're making these promises to God, speaking about our faith, saying how great, kind of making a persona of our faith, making it seem one way to others, but then in intimacy, my goodness, oh my goodness. I've done this so many times, guys. This is why I'm absolutely tripping about this point, because I myself have found moments where I was telling people and I was expressing to others the faith that they need to have, the faith that they need to be living in, and the intention of taking up your cross daily, making sure that you're nailing those desires on the cross. But then in my intimacy, I was not showing any movement. I was quite literally barely praying. But then I was telling others, hey, make sure that you're praying daily. That's the struggle of stagnant believers, is that we are the ones that are pointing out the little twigs in people's eyes, but we got a big fat log in ours. And that is where we have to stop identifying the needs without having any initiative. When we go back to the verses that we were reading, and I love the example that it gave, within verses 14 through 16, that it said, suppose a brother or sister that they don't have any clothes. They don't have any food. And you're just like, have a great, blessed day. And you have access to help them, to give them. And this generation maybe is not so intentional with that, because there's so many trust issues around being that willing to give to others. But we as believers of God have to be intentional with giving to others. When we see a need, we have to act on that need without questioning whether it's worth it or not, because we have to believe that our Heavenly Father is seeing what we're doing and is going to not just bless us, but bless them. So when we see the need of things, see the need of others, see the need for more or the need of something different, but we do nothing about it, we are the ones that are killing our own faith. It makes it so much more difficult to believe in God and live this faith for him when all we're doing is seeing the necessities, but doing nothing about it. God gives us the ability to have discernment, the ability to see clearly. It quite literally talks about it. Oh my goodness, now I need to pull it up because Holy Spirit is reminding me. I was so attached to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 for a very long time, just for the simple fact that it describes the battle of our faith so perfectly, because it's naming how we have a certain language. We have a certain language that is not understood by everyone. So when we are speaking onto others, when we're speaking our ways of believing onto others, they're simply not going to understand. And when we are identifying the needs, we have to understand that God is giving us a vision that is not given to everyone. We literally look, and I want you guys to read 1 Corinthians chapter 2. But it quite literally says it in verse 7. The wisdom we speak is the mystery of God, his plan that was previously hidden, even though he made it for our ultimate glory before the world began. And it later says, no one can know a person's thoughts except the person's own spirit, and no one knows God's thoughts except God's own spirit. And we've received God's spirit, not the world's spirit. So we can know and understand the wonderful things that God freely gives us. He has given us an opportunity to see things that people cannot see. So when we are seeing the needs of people, we have to be a little more intentional in the kingdom. That is how you can stop being a stagnant believer. Start there by supplying needs onto others. I'm not saying just physical material needs. I'm saying start with the heart. If someone just looks like they need to be listened to, and I'll give an example. There's sometimes moments where we encounter people that in our minds, because we are so selfish, it's so inconvenient. The fact that they talk so much. We all know that one person that just rambles and gives their whole life story. And like, it's like, oh wow, my ears overwhelmed. But when we look at it from the perspective of an active believer, we are called to not be so easily irritated by the needs of others. But for some reason, we are so irritated by the needs of others that the minute someone even talks too much, the minute someone maybe even shows that they need something and they're making it obvious, but they're not pointing it out too clearly because they want you to figure it out and they're hoping that you'll be intentional enough to do so. Just so many little aspects of this life that people are revealing their needs, but we are so about ourselves and what can please us and what we need and all these things that we won't take initiative. So I'm going to close that point in saying let's start taking more initiative as believers, because that is how we will not be dull and sluggish within this kingdom, is by taking the initiative. Now, that also means that you are not waiting for God himself to drag you to do something, that you are taking the opportunity, that the minute it presents itself to you, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So be someone of initiative. And in your faith, make sure that every need that you see in others, but also in yourself, even when God is calling you to just be with him, in everything that is a need, take initiative, because that is how you will not be a sluggish and dull believer. Next point, making hasty and heartless promises. We need to stop doing that. Guys, I love this verse. I love this verse so much. For you guys that don't know, I am addicted to the book of Ecclesiastes because it is so clear to us about, I know people say it's like a depressing book. It's really not. It's so eye-opening to wisdom and how we can act on that wisdom. When we make hasty and heartless promises as believers, we do absolutely make our faith something that is stagnant. Because we tell God one thing, we promise him one thing, we, in a moment, say one thing, but we don't do that thing. So when I read Ecclesiastes, and it's chapter 5, verses 4 through 7, stay with me because I love this verse. Oh my goodness. When you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through. For God takes no pleasure in fools. So when you delay your obedience, you're a fool. Wow, talking to myself for real. When you delay the movement, when you delay approaching the needs, you are showing foolish behavior or being a fool. You keep all the promises you make to him. Make sure to do that. Keep all the promises that you make to him. It is better to say nothing than to make a promise and not keep it. Don't let your mouth make you sin. Pause. Pause. Because why does it tell me in the book of James to be slow to speak and quick to listen? Because when you ramble your mouth, you're opening the door to sin. What does that mean? That when you make a promise to God and then you delay it or you don't do it at all, it is a sin. Because you lied. Mind actually blown. Because for some reason, us as humans are so convinced that when our motives are not to do something, it excuses us from doing the actual thing. So when you make a promise to God and you don't do it, oh, I didn't mean to not do it. I had every bit of intention to do it. I didn't lie then. No, you lied because you proceeded to say something that you were going to do and you didn't do it. So, as the verse continues saying, don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger, this is back in the day, of course, telling the temple messenger that the promise you made was a mistake. In a time like today, we're always telling God, no, actually, could you fix what I said? I didn't mean to say it like that. I meant that I was going to do this. Sometimes we like taking back those promises because we like compromising for our own sake and our own comfort. We make promises to God, and the minute it becomes uncomfortable, we're like, oh yeah, I actually didn't mean to say it like that. And that is where, just don't make the promise then. If you can't live up to that promise and be faithful to him through that promise, do not make the promise to him. And it continues saying, that would make God angry, and he might wipe out everything you have achieved. My goodness. Talk is cheap. Repeat with me, because this is what the Bible's saying. Talk is cheap. Like daydreams. Like daydreams. He just said daydreams are cheap. Anyways, that was just such a bar. I love it. Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. So daydreaming is a useless activity. That's such a other parentheses. We have to talk about daydreaming on this podcast because my goodness, it is a useless activity. It's escapism. Go watch the last podcast about that. And it ends by saying, fear God instead. Fear him instead. Instead of rambling your mouth, saying all these promises to him and not fulfilling it, delaying your obedience but always talking about your faith, doing all these things, they are meaningless. Do not do these things. Instead, fear him. What does fearing him really mean? It is that you have the reverence to be able to not lie to him. Be real with him. Be honest about how this faith is in your life. Don't speak ahead of yourself. Don't speak obedience over your life, but then you're being disobedient. Make sure your actions are matching your words. We need to fear God more, not be afraid of him. We need to love him enough to fear him. Love him enough to respect him. He's literally the holiest of holy. We can't lie to him. We can't make these false promises and then we're over here begging for like his sovereignty and his provision and everything that we want from him, but then we're making these false promises. So please read that anytime you'd like. And remember that no pleasure is taken from being one that speaks ahead of themselves. So the stagnant believer, the one that is dull and sluggish, does not take initiative and makes heartless promises. Heartless meaning your heart is truly not fully there. It's not in the things that you are saying. So make sure that your promises are wholehearted when you are speaking them, and then act on them so that you did not lie about the promises. Next, believing through others and not themselves. Guys. I have to get comfy for this, because what? We have this tendency in seasons where we're not moving is to believe through the faith of others, because we're seeing activity from others. We're seeing others do things. We're seeing others that are able to be fruitful in the kingdom. We're seeing their harvest grow. We're seeing so much of God within this generation, right? make sure that you are never believing through others. Don't be that person that is like, pray for me because I'm going through this, but you didn't pray for yourself at home. It is mind-blowing to me how easy it is, and again, I've done it, where you are so quick to say, guys, pray for me through this because I'm going through this and all this stuff. But then in your secrecy, you're not even fighting for yourself. You're not feeding yourself. So you're malnourished spiritually. You're disconnected because you haven't spoken to God. And then on top of that, you're asking people to speak on your behalf. The only thing God can do with their prayers is hope that you'll come to him and talk to him yourself. So we need to learn to not live through others. Now, this counts for everything. It's not just about the church, not just about living through the faith of others in the church. Don't live through your best friend. Don't live through your boyfriend or girlfriend. Don't live through your spouse. I would hope that when you are a boyfriend and girlfriend, you establish that when you are in marriage, that you still have your one, but you have a personal account to give to God. You're still not, like, you're not one in your faith. You are one as a covenant, and you're working together to be able to please the kingdom and do all the things. But when it comes to believing, it is your faith that actually helps bring a beautiful harvest to your marriage. I see so many people that are codependent on others to have a good faith. You need to remember we all have a personal account to give. And I'm going to read to you Romans 14, verses 12 through 13. It says, yes, each of us will give a personal account to God. And then it proceeds to say, so let's stop condemning each other. Decide instead to live in such a way that you will not cause another believer to stumble or fall. So I speak to the people that have also allowed others to depend on them. You wouldn't see it that way maybe in the moment, and I've never seen it that way before either. But allowing someone to be codependent on you and be feeding off of your faith is also creating in them the ability to stumble, to fall. Because when you're not there, what happens? So we have to be mindful as believers to never depend on others' faith. Never forget the fact that we are giving a separate account to God. So no matter where you are in your season, in your journey, in the circles that are around you, all the people that are around you, make sure that you are moving, that you are having a faith that is active, not to where you're letting anyone depend on you or where you're depending on anyone else, but that you're able to share together, give together. That is what fellowship is that you're pouring the individual account of your faith into what others are also giving. So make sure that we stop believing through others. Start believing. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be seasons where there are people around us that are low, that we have to uplift them because that's what the Bible calls us to do. But make sure that that is not a constant thing where you become a refuge for someone, where you become their safe place. But really, they don't even know how to go to God, but they're going to you. Let's create boundaries, remembering that we all have to move in this faith. We all have to move in this kingdom. We cannot be dull and sluggish. So remember this. Remember that seeking God's face is priority. Working in his kingdom is priority. And it reminds me of Ecclesiastes 11. And this is where I'm going to kind of conclude the point of the stagnant believer. Is that when you are a stagnant believer, how do you fix this? Seek his face and work. When we look at Ecclesiastes 11, and I love these verses again. I love the Bible, but I love these verses. It says, farmers who wait for perfect weather never plant. But if they watch every cloud, they never harvest. Just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God, who does all things. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both. I love this verse because it is so convicting to the stagnant believer. If you're not moving, you're waiting for perfect weather. Or you're just waiting because you don't understand what God is doing. This verse answers both of those by saying, firstly, never wait for perfect weather. Never watch the clouds hoping that the perfect moment will come where you're finally constant. The perfect moment will come where you're finally passionate. No, you gotta do it. You just gotta walk into it. You just have to plant. And then, of course, you can be a witness of the weather. You can check on the weather every now and then, but you have to keep working, because you're going to benefit from both. I love that last part of the verse that says plant your seed in the morning and then keep busy all afternoon, because you may just profit from both. So don't be one that is always waiting to work, waiting in order to do the things that they need to do for God. God is calling us to be active in this kingdom, especially in a time like today. So let us work and wait, knowing that we will profit from both. So guys, add on to the body. My stagnant believers, the ones that are not moving right now, add on to the body through loving others, through letting your gifts be something that profits within the kingdom, using your gifts to love others and to release all sin. You realize you won't be sluggish or dull or stuck in sin if you were to just get up, no matter what the weather looks like, and work. So allow us to walk into that, to work and wait. Now, my faithless workers, where are you at? I'm right here. I was one of those too. Very easy to become this, by the way, because what is a faithless worker? You overwork yourself, you're restless, and you don't know how to really remain with God because you're always doing things for Him without Him. Baffles me, actually, because as someone who is a faithless worker for so long, I realize that you always feel like you're doing something. Like, I know that sounds obvious, but I mean, like, your faith always feels full, in a sense. It feels limited, but it still feels somewhat full. You feel like you're doing something. You feel like, oh, I'm bringing something for the kingdom, you know? But really, you're internally killing your faith and you're dying. It's crazy. So when you are a faithless worker, complete opposite of the stagnant believer, you're moving, but you're moving a little too much where you're not talking. You're not talking to the Lord. You're not getting insight based on your work. You're not doing the work for Him completely because you're not letting Him in to the work that you're doing. So when you are restless and you are overly active, and I noticed this, again, as someone who's been in this, it's so quick to utilize my productivity as the reason for not being intimate. Because I'm like, well, God, I'm doing this for you. I'm dedicating this for you. And by His grace, the amount of times I was able to preach a message while not fully living in intimacy with Him, it was His grace. And God does it not because we are anything. He more so does it because of the sake of His name, of the sake of others. Because when we are doing these good works for Him, He knows that others are seeing it and others are receiving it. So for the sake of others, He allows that we profit from our work, even if we're doing it separate from Him. So do not consider your work and the results of your good work to be a sign of any sort of intimacy with Him, because you can still be very far from Him, but doing such a good work for His kingdom. And He will allow there to be a good, fruitful, beautiful harvest from what you are doing for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of His name, and for the sake of the salvation of others. But it never really means that you are doing an incredible job being intimate with Him, because you cannot consider your good works intimacy. It's never that. Intimacy is being able to sit with God and truly rest in his presence. Intimacy is being able to sit and not listen to anything else. Intimacy is not productivity. And for a very long time, I felt like they could be the same thing because I felt satisfied. I was like, wow, I did such a good job. And God is like, yeah, you did it without me. So, since you did it for me though, I allowed my name to be in that. I allowed my grace to reign over it. But again, my work was not doing anything for my intimacy. So we have to start working and remaining. That is what the faithless worker is struggling with, is being intimate and working at the same time, because the work can be all-consuming. Now, this doesn't just mean ministry. This means like our everyday lives. If you are working all the time, I don't just mean jobs, but yeah, we can consider your jobs too. There are a lot of people that are literally giving their life to their job, and they feel this sense of distance from God. But they're like, but God, this is my future. But God, this is my purpose. But you need God in what you're doing at all times. And if you're not inviting him, your thing that you're considering is your purpose and you're dedicating your whole life to, it's going to be the thing that kills you. Because you will lack a fruitfulness. You will lack his presence. So let's stop and let's think. Let's connect our work to our intimacy. Meaning that our intimacy is the place of refuge, and our work is able to be sustained because of that intimacy. That is what we need as faithless workers, is to gain a little more faith in secrecy and have a little more capacity within us to sit with him, and not in a way that is restless, rushing, being impatient. For some reason, and I found myself in this, of having so much work being done in my life that for some reason I felt obligated to limited intimacy. Like I was like, well, God, I can give you 10 of my minutes, but you understand that that's enough because I've done so much. And he's like, but I need you to be here because you're empty. We have to connect the two things, and we have to allow the intimacy to be the thing that pours into our work, not our work representing our intimacy. So we have to stop doing work for him without him. When we look at John 15 verses 4 through 6, now my bestie out there, Yasira, shout out, we love her. She's the one that got me this, by the way. This is like one of her favorite verses. And the minute that she had been talking to me about it, I remember the verse kind of hitting me in a different way. Because as a faithless worker, I was someone that was not remaining with him. And that is exactly what the verse is asking me to do. So listen, because this is, let it remain. Let it remain in here. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. This is Jesus speaking, by the way. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. Why do I love that last part? It seems so aggressive. But when we look at Ezekiel 15, and it's a pure mirror of this verse, these verses, it talks about how because Jerusalem was a useless branch, mind you, this is before Jesus, so they were going by their own righteousness. They were going by their works. They were allowing that their faith, and they had to because, hello, they didn't have grace. When they were living by their own self-righteousness, It wasn't doing anything for them, so they became useless branches. And when that occurred, they were literally compared to as branches that needed to be burned. And when you think about the burning, think about eternity. What happens in eternity to those who are not going to be with God forever? Exactly. I feel like all of this is just a mirror of that. And it is pretty crazy to me when you really contemplate what this verse is saying. So when it says in earlier verses to remain in him, because apart from him you can do nothing. So don't work for him without him. When we are doing these works, but then we're away from intimacy, when we're doing these works, but we're away from his presence, we are quite literally becoming useless branches because we're not connected to the vine. So how can we do good work that is adding on to the kingdom if we're not connected to the king? It makes no sense, and it's going to kill us because now we're doing work for the kingdom and we feel like we're doing a good job, but we're separated from him. We're not honoring him because we're not connected to him. In reality, we are being severed from him by thinking that we are being fruitful, but we can't even tell that the fruit that we are bearing is limited, or the fruit that we are bearing is by his grace, or maybe we're not even bearing any fruit, but we think we're being fruitful by the good work that we're doing. So we cannot do good work for him when he is not within the work, when he's not remaining in us. The biggest mistake that we make as faithless workers is that we somehow are in the belief that we can do things for God and we can hope for his presence to join us, hope for him to continuously sustain us by his grace. We can hope that he will add on to the thing that we are clearly dedicating to him. But God cares a lot more about your heart being present where he is so that he can know where you are, rather than you doing work for him but then running from him because you're not letting intimacy remain. You're not letting him examine your work. And this happens so often. As a perfectionist, I know how difficult it is to do work for God and then let him evaluate me in private. It is sometimes heartbreaking because I have every bit of intention of doing my best job for God. But when he calls me out on the things that need to be fixed or revised, I cannot be offended. Because I told him, my heart has told him, as Psalm 139 says, search me, O God, examine me, examine my ways that have offended you. And then you look at Hebrews 12, he disciplines us like a father. No one likes correction in the moment, but it sure will benefit you later. So we have to allow him to be in the midst of our work. He's not micromanaging us, but he does want intimacy with us so that when we do the good work that we're doing, it really does represent who he is and carries out the purposes of the kingdom. Because when you're doing work without him, a lot of the time, you're losing sight of him. You're no longer doing things that mirror his character because you're losing sight of who he is. So we have to remain with him. We have to make sure that we're not working for him, yet we're not even fully aware of him. We're not fully aware of what he wants. We're not fully aware of who he is. That also means in ministry, guys. Let me speak to my people who are in the church. Do not run to ministry as your refuge for making up for you not being intimate with God. Ministry will never be the thing that fills you enough that you can't be intimate with him. In fact, one day it will just be a mirror to you that you see everything that you lack that you could have found in intimacy with him. So let us not work for him without him. Let us not be so quick and half-hearted in our seeking him. When we are seeking him, we have to be still. When we're seeking his face, we have to be intimate. We have to be in prayer, guys. We have to be in his word. We have to know him. It says in Hebrews 11:6, it is impossible to please God without faith. My faithless workers, the people that are doing the work, but they're not with him. It is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Remember Jeremiah 29:13. If you seek him wholeheartedly, then you will find him. And it says here, he rewards those who seek him. So if I put all this together, we need to make sure that we are not quick and half-hearted when we are seeking him. Make sure that you are not reading his word and then you're limiting what you know about him by being so quick to sit with him. Okay, God, I gave you 5 minutes. Okay, cool. And then you leave. Remember that the biggest strength that we can have is remaining with him. Just as we said in John 15, I believe remaining with him is chasing him fervently. It is that you are inviting him to every aspect of your day. And people listen to this and they're like, well, that's a lot. Yes, invite him to every aspect of your day so that when you are coming to him in intimacy, when you're truly spending time with him, you're not having a piece that is missing. And people feel like that's a lot, but like, don't you text your significant other all day? Some of us are better at not having that much attachment. But for those that are texting their best friend, their spouse, their parent, their whatever it is, you're texting all day and then you're going to see them at the house later. What makes it so much more beautiful seeing them later and being able to be present with them later is the fact that you allowed them to be part of your day already. You were texting them throughout the day. You were letting them know about the things that happen. Oh, I'm going to explain more to you later. That's how it should be with God. We need to be very in touch with him, giving him pieces of our day. He already knows and sees all, but how beautiful is it when you invite him to know, when you invite him to work in it. When being like, God, I know you just saw that encounter. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about that later. And then let him in. Let him evaluate you so that when you have secrecy with him later, you're not catching him up, but you're giving him an opportunity to keep conversating with you in a conversation that you already started. So let us seek him. Let us seek him with our whole hearts. And let us remember that faith is what pleases him, not just our works. And the last and final point, make sure that we stop trying to prove ourselves to God. The root of a faithless worker is the fact that we want to please God, but we really don't know how. We want to prove ourselves to be worthy enough. We want to prove our good work. We want to prove, God, I care. God, I'm here. God, I want this, but I'm fighting. And God, this is hard. And I want to be here, but I don't know how. And like, there's just so much in us that wants to prove to him what we feel. We want to prove to him that we're worthy. We want to prove to him that it wasn't a waste when he called us. But God is not calling us to prove anything to him. He's calling us to be remaining in his presence. But when we look at our salvation, we look at the purpose of being called. Let me remind you of Ephesians 2:8, and this is the ESV version. I normally read NLT, but I love how the ESV version says this. For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing. It is a gift of God. Guys, you were saved. You were saved by not your doing, a gift of God. So since it's a gift, why are we going to work without that gift? Why are we going to work proving ourselves when the gift that he gave us calls us to not prove ourselves, but to prove that his glory can be in our weakness? That is the purpose of him being who he is. It's not so that we can compare and be insecure and then walk into every good work that we do feeling like we're not good enough, so then we overwork ourselves and then we overstep those boundaries, and then now we're doing all this good work and then now we're drained and then we're being shown our own weakness, but then we don't even want to look at the weakness because then we're like, no, that means that I'm not good enough, and then I'm going to be insecure and then I'm going to die in my insecurity. But God is not calling you to prove yourself. He's just calling you to prove that he's real, to prove that his glory is real. And how do you do that? By showing that your weakness can do the good work. Now, your weakness can only do the good work by having faith, by remaining with him, by allowing his words and his thoughts to align with yours. That is how we live this faith. And I want to end with Galatians 3:3. How foolish can you be? My faithless workers, how foolish can you be? After starting your new lives in spirit, why are you now trying to become perfect by your own human effort? I think that's all I gotta say. Because we do not need to prove anything. How foolish are we to think that we can prove anything? We have been shown new lives in spirit. We've been shown that when we seek him and we find him, he works in us. When you read 2 Corinthians 4, he quite literally is the treasure in our fragile jars. So why are we going to be fragile jars that are so clearly weak and fragile? But we're saying, no, but the glory that is within me, trust me. Let me remove the glory of him. Let me show you that I'm strong enough without that glory. Do not go by human effort. I'm telling you, if you do this without faith, if you do this without remaining with him, you're going to spiritually die. You're going to become dull. And then you're going to just show yourself, which you could have just known from the beginning, is that human effort is not the thing that glorifies God. It is by his grace, by his movements, by his beautiful, beautiful mercy that we are able to do work in the kingdom. So make sure that when you are doing work, that you are not overworking yourself to the point of proving yourself to him, but instead do it for his glory. Do it with his grace. Both of these extremes that we've talked about today, the stagnant believer and the faithless worker, they need the throne of grace. When we read about that in Hebrews 4:16, that you come to the throne of grace in a time that you need it most. We need it every single day. We need it desperately. So make sure that you are going to the throne of grace every single day, guys. To live the same faith we speak and to lay every good work at his feet. That is the purpose of this life, is that we live the faith that we speak. So we are being intentional. We're not being dull. We're not being sluggish, but we are living the faith that we speak. And then we're also laying every good work at his feet, knowing that he is the one that will receive the glory in the end. So I pray that today could motivate you to either go to his feet with every good work that you have, or make sure to go speak to him. Make sure to go rest in him and then go work again. And make sure that every work that you are doing, guys, is by his strength for him. Allow your weakness to be visible in his eyes. And as you present your weakness, allow him to bring glory through you, through the fragile jar that you are. Do not lay in these two extremes, but meet him in the middle. Work and rest. Be with him, remain with him, and then work. Do not wait for the perfect weather. Don't die in speaking. Don't make false promises, but be with him and work. I love you all. Thank you for listening if you have up until this point. And I will be back next week.